This is a clock. Inside the clock, there are gears. The teeth of the gears mesh tightly together, and their rotation causes the clock hands to move. You may be surprised if I tell you that chemists have created gears made up of molecules. These molecular gears can transmit rotational motion from one molecule to another. But how is it possible? When it comes to gears, the first thing that comes to mind is rotation. You know that the molecules are always in motion. But what about the movement of different parts within a single molecule? In organic compounds, rotation around a single bond is an interesting type of internal motion. Let's take a look at this molecule. As you can see, in 2-butanol, there are 3 hydrogens on the terminal carbon atom. Now I'm gonna ask you a simple question. Are these 3 hydrogens the same or they are different? The answer is, it depends. Imagine that 2-butanol is frozen. When you look at the methyl group, the chemical environment of these 3 hydrogens is different, so they are not the same. Now imagine that the methyl group rotates very fast. In this situation, the 3 hydrogens are continuously interconverted into one another. So we can say that they are equivalent and there is no difference between them. In other words, we should consider the time scale of our observation. At room temperature, the rotation of the methyl group is very fast. So the hydrogens experience an average chemical environment. This brings up an interesting question. Is it possible to distinguish between the 3 hydrogens of the methyl group at room temperature? One option is creating steric hindrance around the methyl group. If we can do this, rotation around the single bond is restricted. So when we look at the methyl group on the laboratory time scale, we can say that the 3 hydrogens are different. But how can we do this? Look at this beautiful structure. It's called tryptycene. At the core of the structure, there is bicyclooctane, which is fused to a benzene ring on the right and another on the left. In addition, it's connected to another benzene ring on the upper side. Here is one interesting derivative of tryptycene, in which a methyl group is attached to a tryptycene framework. Look at these 2 substituents on the phenyl rings. They act as blockers that restrict the rotation of the methyl group. Interestingly, we can control the rate of rotation by using different substituents on the phenyl rings and creating different levels of steric hindrance. Here is the bottom line. If we can control something, we can modify it and build something new. Now let's go back to the macroscopic world. To create a gear, we need 2 components that mesh together and rotate in a coordinated way. By taking this analogy to the molecular level, we can connect 2 tryptycene moieties and create a molecular gear. Actually, this is possible by connecting them with a linker. In this case, CH2 is a linker which adjusts the distance between the 2 tryptycene units. Because of the unique geometry of tryptycene, each phenyl ring acts like a gear tooth. As a result, each tryptycene behaves like a 3-toothed gear. Notice that each blade fills the empty space between the 2 blades of the second tryptycene. This arrangement allows the phenyl rings to intermesh with one another. Therefore, this Ditriptycenemethane is truly a molecular gear where rotational motion is transmitted between the 2 components. To simplify the rotation process, I show each phenyl ring with a rectangle and the CH2 linker with a line. When the 2 tryptycene units rotate, they pass through a conformation in which the molecule has CS symmetry. This structure is the transition state of the geared rotation. Going from the ground state to the transition state needs only 0.2 kilocalories per mole. This extremely low energy barrier shows that the rotation is almost barrierless. At first, it doesn't make sense because tryptycene is a bulky structure. you might expect a high energy transition state because the two tryptycene units should experience significant steric repulsion. However, calculations show that the energy of the transition state is almost the same as that of the ground state. The reason lies in the concept of correlated rotation. Normally, different parts of a molecule can rotate independently, but in a molecular gear, the motion of one component affects the motion of the other component. In other words, the two motions are linked together. This is called correlated rotation. The stronger this correlation is, the more effective rotational motion is transmitted through the molecular gear. In the macroscopic world, there are several types of gears, such as Spur gears and Bevel gears. In a Bevel gear, the axes of rotation are perpendicular to one another, but in a Spur gear, the axes are parallel. Ditriptycenemethane is actually a Bevel gear. As you can see, the two components are positioned on top of one another. But what about molecular Spur gears? Here is the general structure of a molecular Spur gear. As you can see, we need stator to hold two tryptycenes, which are connected to the stator by linkers. In this system, the tryptycenes are parallel to one another and therefore act as a Spur gear. This is the real structure of the molecular Spur gear. At the core of the stator, there is a norbornane unit that is connected to the tetrahydroanthracene on the left and right sides. The linker is constructed from two alkynes attached together in a linear fashion. At the ends of the alkynes, you can see the tryptycenes with their free blades. They are tightly intermeshed together so that they can demonstrate a beautiful geared rotation. Now let's see how to create this gear. The synthesis begins with the Diels-Alder reaction between norbornadiene and anthracene with an aldehyde on the middle ring. In anthracene, this ring is more reactive and acts as a diene. This is a cycloidect product, but norbornane still has a double bond that could react with another anthracene. This is actually a twofold Diels-Alder reaction leading to the desired product. Notice that there are two possible products. This is actually the minor one because two aldehydes create steric hindrance. But the other product is the major one, in which the aldehydes are far away. Now the structure of the stator is completed. To create the linkers, we should convert the aldehydes to alkynes by Bestmann-Ohira reaction. Here we have the phosphonate and a sulfonyl azide, which acts as a diazo transfer reagent. In the phosphonate, this hydrogen is highly acidic because of the presence of two powerful withdrawing groups. So it attacks the terminal nitrogen atom of the sulfonyl azide. This intermediate is in equilibrium with the enolate form. At the same time, proton transfer occurs on this nitrogen atom. Next, it is converted to diisophosphonate as a result of moving non-bonding electrons. In the next step, potassium carbonate abstracts the acidic hydrogen on methanol. Then it attacks the carbonyl group of the phosphonate, leaving a negative charge on this carbon atom adjacent to the nitrogen. This highly reactive species attacks the aldehyde, and then the negatively charged oxygen of the aldehyde attacks the phosphorus in an intramolecular fashion. Next, the phosphonate leaves the compound by moving bonding electrons to create this highly reactive diazo intermediate. Notice that this extra carbon atom comes from the phosphonate compound. Now the stage is set for producing the carbene by expelling nitrogen gas. Finally, the alkyne is produced by a 1,2 migration. By this procedure, the two aldehydes of the stator are converted to terminal alkynes. Now we should install the two tryptycenes on the terminal alkynes. To do this, we can use a palladium-catalyzed cross-coupling reaction between the stator and 9-bromoethanyl tryptycene. In this video, we found out how basic concepts in organic chemistry like rotation and steric hindrance lead to the fabrication of such a complex molecular structure. If you are interested in learning more about this fascinating molecular world, check out this video, which is about helical structures.